afternoon. Wow, a 360 view of everyone out here. I'll try and make sure I make eye contact through this conversation. So why am I here? And what am I going to talk about? We're talking a lot about technology and choosing the right stack, building the right features. Where I'm going to focus on is product principles that will help you build a scalable product and a sustainable business, and why this is important as you look at your own software teams and your own companies going forward. This is as important as the decision you make on the technology stack you're choosing, the people you're hiring, and the product you're going to go build. So why does it matter, and what makes us unique in having this conversation with you today? So Sentry serves over or close to 100,000 organizations today. So it's at massive scale. It is a platform that enables you to find issues in your code, whether it's an error, whether it's a slowdown because of performance, whether it's a user complaining about an application crashing. All of those principles are solved by Sentry. And in building this business, which has taken over 12 years, we have stuck to some core elements, some core principles in choosing what to do and what not to do. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about next. But before that, my marketing team wanted to make sure that we put it up here, that it's not just us who says Sentry is popular and is used globally. It is one of the most popular dev tools out in the marketplace. So how did we get here? And that's where I want to focus, the three philosophies that we follow. And I think if you take a step back, a lot of these product principles are applicable to most software teams and businesses that are out there today. The first one seems very obvious, which is knowing your persona. Who are you building for? Why do I bring this up? Take us for example. We're a monitoring tool. Are we building to serve the developer? Or are we building to serve a SRE or an operations persona? Or are we building to serve a leadership, like a manager with fancy reports? And these are decisions that we always kind of put in mind when we were building Sentry. So before my time at Sentry, if you look at how the product works, you ship code, there's a problem with the code, we alert on it, a developer or a team gets an alert, they fix it, they solve it, they move on. So we made a very early decision that the primary and only persona that we're going to serve is the developer. Why is that important? And why is it relevant when you're building software companies or products? It is important to know who you're building for. So in our case, when I say we are building for a developer, the question to ask yourself if you're building a product today is, if I had $1 to invest, where would I invest, right? At Sentry, when we talk about that, when we have $1 to invest, we will invest in enabling the developer. Super important product principle. Who are you building for? It's very easy. We're a 12-year-old company now. Very easy to say, let's go build for somebody else, right? An operator, a leadership manager. We stick to our principles. In 2020, we had to make a decision again. Who are we building for? We are building for the developer. The second point on here is day in the life of. When you're building a product, it's super important you know or you live the journey of the persona you're serving. What does a developer do all day? How can I integrate into their workflow? Versus, here's my product, figure out how to use it in your workflow, right? Live in the shoes or live in the journey of the persona you're building for. That is how you get product market fit. Solve for that persona by understanding them, what they do, how they do, where they do it. And the last point is, by knowing who you're building for, you know what not to build. As most of you know, in building companies, you have to always decide, what do we not do? By knowing who you're building for, it helps you make decisions on what you're not going to do or not invest much, much easier. So let's take an example of this. At Sentry, as I said, we will tell you, here's an issue. It gives you an alert. You immediately solve it, right? On the left side, what you see with a big cross is dashboards. Dashboards that report on number of issues or number of errors by team or by geography. Important, relevant, pretty, but not a needle mover for a business. Most developers will not care. They just want to fix the problem they see in front of them and move on. So where did we invest instead? We made a conscious decision to say, let's not invest in more dashboarding. Let's invest in enabling the developer with code. So when you have an error, we will tell you the line of code and the code committer, the team or the person who committed that code, allowing you to resolve in minutes. We're investing in that workflow. So these are the choices you get to make, right? And this decision, by the way, was recent, in 2020, when we had to do this. 8 years after the company was formed, we came back to first principles of why are we doing X versus Y? Let's move these resources over and let them focus on a different problem serving the developers. A second thing over here is a common problem when you understand the problem to solve is you try to do too many things, try to add too many features. In our case, we were really good at front-end monitoring. JavaScript, we do full stack, but we are really good starting off to solve the front-end problem. And so we decided, and we continue to choose to go deep. So as a result, when the latest framework comes out in JavaScript, whether it's Next.js or the latest craze is Bun, Astro, day zero support, right? For developers, that means when they choose Sentry, they know it will solve the problem. That's how you kind of focus on building your business and product market fit. You're there when new things come in the market. Now that we've nailed the error monitoring use case for the front end, only then, 6 years later, did we introduce new functionality and performance. And then 2 years after that, which is in this year, we introduced session replay. So make sure you nail what you first came out to do completely and effectively. Win, win, win every day. Be the best product before you decide to do everything for everyone, right? Even in the case of a developer. And I say this because we're 12 years in, and we are still solving for the persona that is developer, the full stack developer. So it's not easy to say we are done. We have completed our mission in building. By choosing to be a developer-focused product, we made the decision to build in the open. We are an open source company, but when you build Sentry today, and if you have an issue with Sentry, you go to GitHub. And all of our feature requests are GitHub requests. So everything we do is direct communication out in the open. So as a developer, as an end user of Sentry, you can comment, you can star, you can ask, and build in that, right? So when I say first principles of knowing your persona, we know that's how developers like to interact. And so giving them the ability to influence the product without talking to a human being is super important when we think about that. So here are 3 simple examples of what we did when I say persona focus, but the same applies if you choose your software, your industry, your persona. What do they do? Where do they interact? What do they do day in, day out? Understanding that and solving for that will get you further to your product market fit and scalability as a business. The net result of this is not only do we have customers who self-serve and every day hundreds of customers sign up for Sentry. That's the scale we are talking about, right? And they come back and they will post on Twitter or on GitHub or on LinkedIn, on social media saying, We're really happy. We solved a problem. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We don't need to seek them. They actually come and tell us we're solving for them. So that's principle number one. Principle number two, make it easy to use. Seems relatively straightforward, right? But what does that mean when you think about your business? If you're in the business of serving software, you can serve it as software as a service. You can deliver it as a package in a data center still, right? But the question to ask is, can a end user experience your software? And how does that take place? In our case, you don't have to talk to a human being. You can run it in your data center. You have a 14-day trial you can start. You can choose to run it, you can start a trial period, or you can essentially self-host it yourself. So this is different for different businesses, but accessibility to your software is super important. If they have to sign up and fill up a form to talk to a human being, that's the question you have to ask. Is that the friction you want for scale going forward? Maybe in your case it is relevant, but it is important that you fix the access issue. The second point on this that we talk about is, do you know where your users are or where they work? And can you get in front of them? In our case, can we be in every language that a developer uses? So where are they in terms of not only access, but where do they work? Where do they exist as a community? And the last part is pricing and packaging. So I'll touch upon all three of these. Access is not just about, can I get access to trial? Can I download your software? The question to ask is, when I download your software, start using your service, can I start using it by reading the docs or through an intuitive workflow or a simple command line? If it requires me to come and talk to you again, you're putting kind of hindrances to your business, right? And so as a team, you have to think about what path you're taking. In our case, as an example, it's 4 lines of code to get started with Sentry. And increasingly for specific platforms, like for mobile or for Next.js, it's a command line that signs you up, sets up the entire process, and you're up and running. That's what I mean by simplifying access, by making it available, by enabling the user to go faster. Again, it does not need to be as simple as Sentry, but you have to think about these things if you want to build a scalable business. Can they access it? Can they get using it? Can they get value very quickly? Where they work. Developers, you probably heard, and you will hear about all kinds of web frameworks and backend languages, and every day there's some new language or framework, right? From C, C++ all the way to the latest JavaScript a framework that comes out. We support all of them. And we also support PagerDuty or Slack or OpsGenie or GitHub or GitLab. All of the integrations alike. Where do they work? Where do the persona work? How do they integrate? Nail that. It is important if you want to succeed as a business, as a product. These are small but super important things, and these principles will allow you to make better decisions in what to build and what not to build. And last but not the least, pricing and packaging. It's a very simple art, but price transparency and packaging transparency can fix a lot of problems for you. What do I mean by that? I love your software. I want it. Talk to a human. Complex conversations versus here's what it looks like. If you want to buy it, this is the simplicity of how you buy it. It may still need a legal contract and a human being, but price transparency is super important when you think about your product and your company. Not enough time is spent on packaging and pricing as software teams, as companies, as it should be, because this can make or break how you win in the market. So as simple as it's free, there's a $29 plan, there's a bundle, right? So how to get access to the software. It's not just about, hey, it's easy to use. It's meeting them where they use the software or where they visit or the communities where they're in, making it accessible, and then focusing on pricing and packaging transparency. Which brings me to the most important point is, okay, I'm building for person X. I have made it available. I've built pricing transparency. What is the outcome you want to achieve with your product? It's forgotten a lot of times. What are you known for? What do you solve uniquely that is not available without you? That's what I mean building for outcomes. And this is like a principle that you need to know if you're building a product. So let me give you an example. In our case, we solve for software issues. And when you have a software issue, as you know, if it's an e-commerce company and your checkout doesn't work, you're losing money, right? If it's a mobile app and it crashes, you're not hailing the next ride. So it's money on the line, it's productivity on the line, it's your brand on the line. So we knew that, right? And so when there's an issue in software, let's fix it quickly. To fix it quickly, it is about answers. And so at Sentry, we realized very early on, and this is again, what is the outcome? Can I give you the answer to the problem you're facing versus a set of clues which will get you to the answer? So what you see over here is when your mobile app crashes, and say the mobile app developer is using Sentry, they will get a notification, and what you see up here is the line of code that is crashing, right? It's answers, not clues. And that is what we as a company figured out. This is what we want to do. You're like, okay, great, you all made this product, great. So this was our first product, right? We decided to add in 2020 a second product in performance, which tells you when your product is slow. Like somebody clicks a button on your site and it's taking a lot of time to load, and we tell you what it is. It's called tracing. The technology is nothing new. It's been in the market. It's called tracing. And typically what you see is something like this, right? If you're an expert, that is great. Now, this is in 2020. We've already launched our first product. We launched this, and then we come back to first principles. We forgot. What is our first principle? To give you not clues, but the answer, right? And so a year later, we came out with what we call performance issues, which actually tell you that your database query is slow, which is why page loads are slow. And notify the developers building it instead of them hunting down the issues that are coming in, right? So why do I talk about this? Why do I talk about these first principles? Because even in a company like ours, where we are aligned, we launched our second offer, forgot about our first principle, and had to get back to it, right? And so this is something you revisit every single time. It's not a one-time thing. We did this, we'll make it happen. And so similarly, we launched a product in profiling. This tells you when your function, this goes to the code line and tells you which functions in your code are not working or not optimal, right? So one is telling you your call A to call B is slow, which is performance tracing. This actually goes to the actual function calls and does the same thing. And so what did we do over here? We acquired a company, Spectral. They came in. It was all about flame graphs and everything else. But the team realized that the value in Sentry is giving you answers. And so what are they shipping now? They are telling you, given a software release, which one are your slowest functions in terms of processing time, or which functions have regressed in performance, which are the two charts you see, right? We went from, again, showing you a bunch of data to getting you to very pointed answers. And when that regression happens, you getting a notification saying that function is now 30% slower, do something about it. Getting to that answer, right? So why do I say this? To get to the scale we are at and the decisions we make with multi-products, with a global engineering team, these principles and these philosophies around product decisions, this is not about technology. These are fundamental principles about who are we serving, making sure that whatever we do from a product standpoint is accessible and affordable, and building to those outcomes. And I can promise you that if you took some of the same kind of core principles and applied it to your business, it won't be one for one, but you can kind of figure out what are our core principles and you bring them over and over again. That will help you, enable you to build a successful product, a successful business, and scale to, you know, the scale to the vision that you have sorted out to be as a group. So with that, I end my talk here. I hope you found it valuable. Thank you.